Another beautiful day in paradise. Got a nice fire going. Nice day out here. Again, by the pond. That's where I do most of my work. It's a sacred fire. I've smudged it out here with the sage. I think that's Montana sage I have there. I've been wondering where to go with these recordings. And I have to get my head together and decide what I'm going to talk about. Because I do feel like I need to talk about some stuff. See my t-shirt. This t-shirt was gifted to me by my brother and teacher, Michael Anton Tippett, who passed away a few months ago. And I thought it was kind of a cool t-shirt, sort of an irreverent t-shirt. I got a kick out of it, and I enjoyed wearing it. But I don't think I really understood what it meant, and it was just yesterday that I discovered what it means. Apparently there's some kind of urban myth about when two unicorns fuck, they create a rainbow. That's what the thing is about, apparently. So I'm promoting the idea that we can create rainbows, you know, by breeding our unicorns, so to speak. And that is something that I think that we need to breed is rainbows. I think that's the theme that I wanted to talk about today. The idea of the rainbow and the rainbow prophecies. I've been reading the Hopi Survival Kit, which is right there, and this is in addition. It's timely, of course. It's timely that I pulled that out. And I'm reading it. Obviously, I'm being called to read it for some reason, and I'm paying attention. Spirit saying, open this up, read it. There's stuff that you need to read. There's stuff that you need to learn. There's stuff that you need to be aware of. And so I'm slowly working my way through that. And this is a good place to do it out here. In a sacred space, and essentially it's ritual. Ceremonial ritual, but the idea of the rainbow warrior, I guess, is what I wanted to talk about today. Primarily, this is what I'm being called today to talk about. I've been doing ceremony now for almost 30 years. And by doing ceremony, I mean I've been participating in it. I'm not running ceremony. I mean, sometimes I run my own ceremony for myself, but I'm not qualified to conduct ceremony per se. I don't have the rights or teachings to conduct a sweat lodge ceremony, for example, even though I've done it for many, many years, and I can't count the number of lodges that I've been in. I aspire to that. It's one of the things that I've prayed for. It's one of the things that I've asked for. I've asked ceremonially of elders by presenting them with tobacco and saying, this is my aspiration. but I certainly have not ascended to that point yet. Although I have poured a couple of lodge rounds. I've been asked to contribute in that way, but I'm certainly not responsible for a whole lodge. It takes a long time to reach that stage, and if you don't put in the time to be deserving of that, then what you're doing is a travesty, really, and it's an insult. It's an insult to spirit, because it's your own entitled ego saying that you are somehow gifted or more better prepared than others to do it, particularly your elders. You know, if you see a very young person pouring lodge, you have to really wonder what that lodge is all about. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because when I first got involved in doing inipi ceremonies, inipi means the sweat lodge ceremony in Lakota. The initi is the actual lodge itself, but inipi is the ceremony. There are other words for it too. Those are short versions of the word. But when I first got involved in doing these kinds of ceremonies, it was on a land where there were 3 sweat lodges on the land, and that land was called Rainbow Retreat. There was a Blackfoot Lodge on that land when I first started. There was also a separate Lakota Lodge on the land, and there was a 3rd lodge, and we called that the Rainbow Lodge. It was my understanding at that time that a Rainbow Lodge was a non-affiliated New Age, for lack of a better word, lodge. It's not following a particular tradition. It doesn't have the formal teachings, the formal rites passed to it, and so, you know, it's much looser. I've never been to a rainbow gathering. I know some people who have been. The impression that I've long held about the rainbow gatherings is that it's sort of an excuse for people to go into the woods and party and get high. The rainbow gathering tradition is that they find public land somewhere and then they go squat on it and do a festival. From what I've been told, one of the aspects of the rainbow gatherings is that they do have lodges. They have sweat lodges. And I think that's one of the places, or one of the sources for the name Rainbow Lodge. And these lodges aren't necessarily accredited, you know. They're sort of notorious for being done by white New Agers, for lack of a better term. And that's it. It's not sort of insulting. It's very insulting to those cultures and those peoples that, you know, the tradition comes from, and so that's where the term cultural appropriation comes in. It's where you're not respecting the original source. You're taking certain aspects of it, but you're not doing it in a respectful way. And that was my impression of what a Rainbow Lodge was at that time. And that was 25 years ago, over 25 years ago. So since that time, I think it was 2010, there was a notorious situation where a white Wasichu New Ager was doing ceremony in Sedona Arizona of all places, as part of some larger workshop he was doing, I guess. And he was charging money. He was charging money for his workshops, and if a sweat lodge is part of the workshop that you're charging money for, you're charging money for a sweat lodge. You can't hide that. And I've heard outrageous sums of money that people were paying for this this workshop, over thousands of dollars. And I guess he had like 30 or 40 people in that lodge, and he ended up killing a few people. Smothering them or suffocating them or giving them heat exhaustion to the point where they died in the lodge. And a lot of people jumped on that, and they said, well, this is what happens when you have people that are trying to appropriate the ceremony and do it in a disrespectful way. So that's why we try not to do what are called rainbow lodges. The rainbow term was pretty popular around the turn of the century. There were a lot of what are called the rainbow prophecies published around that time in books. And the rainbow prophecies are supposedly prophecies by Native American prophets who foresaw a time when the diffuse peoples of the world would all come together as one. Crazy Horse is quoted within this context. He's got a quote where he talks about all the colors of the races coming together at some point. And Black Elk talks about it, Fool's Croak talks about it, the Hopis talk about it. Lots of people talked about the rainbow prophecies, lots of indigenous elders of about 20 years ago or older. And so these are generally lumped together and are called the rainbow prophecies. Since that time, there are, and let me back up and just explain some more about what the term rainbow means. Most indigenous cultures have a medicine wheel, and the medicine wheel has 4 directions on it at least, and the 4 directions have attributes, certain spirit animals attached to each direction, which gives each direction a certain character, plus there's a color associated with each direction. And usually these colors are red, black, white, and yellow. There are variations, but that's the basic thing. And in particular, the Lakota colors are black, red, yellow, and white. I won't go into all the variations about which culture assigns what color to which direction, but there's no single right way to do that. But if you adopt a particular tradition and the ways of a particular culture, you should follow what they teach. And the Lakotas that I follow have a medicine wheel that has black in the west, red in the north, yellow in the east, and white in the south. These represent, according to the lore, these represent the 4 races of the world. The blacks, the reds, or the indigenous peoples, the yellow people, and the white people. The idea behind the rainbow is that all the colors, all these colors of the world, the so-called separate races will all come together and be one, because their blood is all the same. Their blood is all red, really. And And once the outer shell leaves us, we all look the same. Our skeleton's the same. It's the same color. So the teaching is that the outside color is immaterial and not important. What's important is what's inside, and we're all the same. That's the idea of the rainbow prophecies. And the idea of those that are trying to teach this lesson in the world and promote it have been called rainbow warriors. And I've been proud to say that I myself am a rainbow warrior. I'm happy to say that because I want to promote the idea of unity and discourage the idea of separation. Separating ourselves by appearance alone. When I was a kid, I was growing up, during the times of the hippies, and I think maybe today some of the kids, they don't really know what the hippies were all about. They think, oh, it's a dirty hippie. Well, the reason why hippies had long hair and dressed differently one of the reasons anyway, is because of they were rebelling against the idea that people make judgments or discriminate according to someone's appearance instead of looking at what's underneath. So, if you have long hair, you shouldn't make judgments about that person based on the length of their hair. It's part of the reason why we rebelled and why we wanted to grow our hair long, even though the common rules at that time amongst schools was that you had to have hair above your collar and off your ears, and they would enforce this hair code. They would also enforce a dress code. And so in my generation, going through junior high and high school during that period, it would have been in the very late 60s, early 70s, we rebelled against those kinds of codes by flouting them. We grew our hair long, we violated the dress codes, and then we forced them to do something about it. Then when they did something about it, we mobilized to raise awareness and try to change it. And eventually these things did change. We were allowed to have long hair. That was tolerated slowly. But people ask, why do I wear my hair long? That's part of the reason, is because we fought a very hard battle. To look the way that we wanted to look and dress the way that we wanted to dress. I mean, I remember even in junior high, there was a rule that we had to have our shirt tucked in. We couldn't have our shirt tails sticking out. And so I remember very distinctly, before my hair ever got very long, I was purposely going to school with a well-ironed, cleaned shirt, but wearing it with the coattails out, the shirt tails out, and flouting the rules. And I don't ever recall actually being busted for that. The psychology, I guess, is of that kind of control system. That's what William Burroughs called it, control systems. The psychology of that is that if your best students are flouting the rules, then it's much harder for you to enforce that rule. If the rules are being flouted and broken by the worst students, by the troublemakers, then it's easy to enforce it. But if your best students start flouting the rules, it's very difficult. And that's how change happens. And so change happened. Lately, there's this phenomenon of what we call social justice warriors, and that's usually young people who are well-meaning, but they feel like They feel like white people who are espousing the idea of unity in the guise of rainbow warriors are culturally appropriating native culture. They find that offensive, and so there seems to be a pushback against the term rainbow. And that's why I guess I've developed this aversion to what I call rainbow lodges. But the larger concept of rainbow warriors fighting for unity in the world and peace and love doesn't seem to be such a bad thing. I don't think. So why is it that we should be discouraging the use of the term, ridiculing people who say that they're a rainbow warrior? I guess I'm proud. I guess what I'm doing is I'm going on record and saying I'm a rainbow warrior, and I'm proud of it. So that's what the rainbow thing is about. And I could talk about it some more, but that's I think that's essentially what I wanted to talk about today. So let's end that there. Aho, matakuyas.